Pokémon Gold and Silver have a bit of a reputation for a bad post-game experience, but I played through it with some careful planning and a critical eye, and I have to say, I think the Kanto experience in these games is better than we give it credit for. It's practically elegant? Listen, I'm not blind to its issues, but we're being too mean about it, and I want to challenge some beliefs. The level curve is extreme, and the world is certainly emptier than it was in Red, Blue, and Yellow. But the developers did not want to re-implement an entire second game after the credits roll. They wanted to give us a curated mini-adventure that happens to take place in the Kanto region, and I think there was no huge crime committed, just perhaps too little paint spread over too large a canvas. The Generation 2 Pokemon games are pretty intentional about the route that you should take to complete the main game, set in Johto and reach the credits for the first time. Then in the Kanto post-game, that carefully planned adventure does appear to fall apart. I mean, they deposit you in Vermilion City, which is home to the 4th gym of Gen 1, and immediately funnel you up to Saffron City, which is the 6th. But I did my typical thing of plotting out a highly specific order to experience the postgame in a way that feels intentional from a game design perspective, and I have to say, I found the adventure cohesive and pleasant. First of all, some admin. Hello, my name is Mothy, Jimothy for long, and though I've accidentally become a bit of a PokeTuber recently, my main thing is mostly just playing games, quote-unquote, as intended, which means giving games a full playthrough, completing all of their content, and interacting with all of their gameplay systems in good faith. I try to play games through the eyes of the game designers, following breadcrumbs and little hints to complete the game's challenges using the tools that we're given for those purposes. In Pokemon, this looks like catching a certain Pokemon right before a gym that it's strong against, or utilizing Sweet Scent out of combat to help me encounter a rare Pokemon quicker. I also take careful effort when planning my route, focusing on batching content within a region to minimize backtracking. In this video, I'm going to guide y'all through the post-game of Pokemon Gold and Silver, played as intended, and hopefully demonstrate that it's actually a little cleaner of an experience than the world is accustomed to giving it credit for. I loathe an overlong intro, and this one's getting mature, so let's hop into the run. But I will entreat you to like this video if you like this video, or to leave a comment on your thoughts about the Kanto postgame as we go. I'm curious if I can change any minds. Thank you so much. This video is a continuation of my Gen 2 retrospective video, linked above, starting immediately after defeating the Elite Four in Pokemon Gold version. The team consists of a Feraligatr named Baking Soda, a Girafarig named Tamantha, a Ho-Oh named Lone Star, a Sudowoodo named Canyonero, a Forretress I bred to know Pin Missile named Knife, and a Mantine named Saltine who is mostly an HM whore. We want to begin playing at nighttime in-game. There's actually quite a lot of nighttime-specific content in the postgame, and specifically, you'll want to be playing on an SATURDAY night. We need the slightest bit of prep work in Johto before crossing over with John Edward. Fly up to Mahogany Town, then walk east and surf to the patch of marshy grass on Route 44. As in Yellow version, we need to catch a Lickitung in the postgame, and they only show up on this tiny flooded strand. I struggled a bit catching it with my endgame leveled team since nobody could touch it without a knockout. A more forward-thinking Mothy would have told you to catch one of these on your initial pass through the area. Then in New Barktown, Professor Elm's congratulations for defeating the Elite Four includes an SS ticket which permits us to ride the SS Aqua from Olivine City to Vermilion City in Kanto. So head to Olivine City, but do not hop on the boat yet. We need one more preparatory catch. Good Rod up a Staryu, a 10% nighttime only encounter. A 50% Ice Punch from Baking Soda was just barely non-lethal, and I caught this one more easily. Now, aboard the SS Aqua. This ship sails from Olivine to Vermilion on Mondays and Fridays. It also sails the other direction on Sundays and Wednesdays. Meaning if you ride from Vermilion to Olivine on Sunday, you can head back the next day. But if you travel on a Wednesday, then you're stuck in Johto for 2 days before you can return. This will come up later, but our initial trip doesn't care what day it is. After boarding, this old man plays knick-knack on my thumb, then asks for our help locating his granddaughter, whom he fears has fallen overboard. It's a silly excuse to add some drama to our boat ride, but it provides a little structure and encourages us to check out all the rooms on board, most of which contain a trainer battle. To proceed, we have to first attempt to enter the second floor and get denied by this sailor who makes us go battle his friend. That friend has now spawned back on the first floor. Beat him, then enter the second floor and battle through that, then find the missing girl pestering the ship's captain, whereupon we're teleported to the old man's room. He says thanks, hands us a metal coat, and that's it. The ship lands in Vermilion City. I appreciate that they gave us a little missing granddaughter sequence to make the ship ride interesting, but the brevity of the conclusion does make me wish they spent a little more time on the writing specifically. Okay, we're set loose in Vermilion City, free to challenge Lieutenant Surge, but we're not doing that for a while. The 8 gym leaders of Kanto can be challenged in any order, but they do have a clear ordering when you consider their levels in ascending order, and Lieutenant Surge is not the first. For now, steal a full heal from his bush. The postgame may be slightly empty trainer-wise, but they did a good job planting non-trainer NPCs to flesh out the world. NPCs around town here introduce the idea of the bullet train up in Saffron City, which is going to be a major plot point. The Pokemon fan club is still operating, the president gifting you a rare candy for listening to his spiel. And this man is still working on his construction 3 years later, though his Machop is looking kinda shriveled up like a blister in the sun. This is another case of the writing letting me down. I feel like 3 years was long enough for them to make a call on what this building was supposed to be. A Snorlax blocks us from heading east, so our only path is north on Route 6, which has no trainer battles this time. The underground is closed, forcing us to enter Saffron City instead of Cerulean. Now, if it was too early to fight Lieutenant Surge, it's much too early to fight Sabrina, so just harvest Saffron City for loot instead. Mr. Psychic is still here, handing out psychic TMs that I teach to Tamantha. Silphco has been reduced from a glorious dungeon to a sterile lobby. This one employee gives us an up-dash grade for coming by, weirdly hyphenated from that era where people were still hyphenating shit like E-mail because it meant electronic mail. This one guy in an empty alley comments on how entering alleys makes him feel anxious. So he must feel pretty anxious around your mom. The fighting dojo contains the focus band and one stray NPC hinting to go challenge Kyo in Mount Mortar if we have not done so yet. And NPCs continue trickling out information to help guide our journey. Here, they mention the inoperable power plant that runs the magnet train, directing us to go visit that. And that's all Saffron has for now. Exit west on Route 7 to Celadon for the most eagerly awaited grass patch in the game. For one, it's got Growliths in gold version, Vulpesies in silver, and we need to catch one of whichever for content later. Plus, another nighttime occurrence. Houndours spawn here and only here. One patch of grass, in the postgame, 5% encounter rate, at nighttime only, and they start at level 15. The game really sought to gatekeep dark Pokemon from us. The fact that they made it so hard to get a Houndour, I am choosing to interpret as the game's belief that Houndours are exquisitely powerful, so welcome Tuna Baby to the team. Mind you, I'm shooting myself in the foot regarding team comp with this. No single swap out for Tuna Baby is clean between duplicate type coverage or losing HMs. Ultimately, I decided to replace Saltine since technically he was a duplicate flying type anyway. The postgame is tough, but Houndoom is a powerful Pokemon, so I'm okay accepting the burden of having to maybe shuffle the team when we need HMs in exchange for raw power level. Then we're in Celadon City. First, climb the rear of Celadon Mansion for yet another nighttime exclusive bit of content. This spooky man tells us a ghost story about a cursed bicycle, then hands over the cursed TM that we do want later. The game corner in Celadon is equally as underwhelming as Goldenrod's, but the prizes are at least different. We can get a Mr. Mime for 3,333 coins, which is not a bad deal if you have not yet committed to a psychic type, and replacement psychic TMs are only 3,500. The restaurant is holding an eating contest, which is just silly flavor, but their trash can contains leftovers, a powerful held item that I give to Knife for even more survivability. The department store sadly has nothing new for us, and Erica still is not our first gym battle, so we're done with Celadon for now. Exit west onto Route 16. Here we can encounter Slugma, another Gen 2 Pokemon who is locked to the postgame. I point this one out because Celadon City is surrounded by Growlithe, Houndour, and Slugma. 3 fire types in a small area is highly unusual given their overall rarity. I wonder if this is vaguely implied to be a result of Cinnabar Island's volcano displacing Pokemon, but that theory is not supported with any in-game dialogue. Cycling Road is much emptier than in Generation 1, with only 4 trainers on it. In fact, every route that used to be full of trainer battles now only has a scant few. This does leave the game world feeling emptier, but I'll advocate for the game a little bit here. I'm sure the intent was to avoid bogging us down with endless battles that would feel like busy work, having already cleared the Elite Four. Having too many trainers could easily invite different criticism. It's a shame not to benefit from the experience points, though. Fighting some birds on Route 18, Tuna Baby dings level 20 off of XP share and learns Bite. She's coming along nicely, but I probably want a few more levels still before I put her in the action, even a super effective matchup. Then arrive in Fuchsia City, which has more helpful NPC dialogue hints. In Bill's grandpa's house, Bill's cousin tells us that we can find their grandpa up on Cerulean Cape. He is a pretty big anchor point in the content of this video, to be honest. Then, I have great news. Fuchsia City is the clear easiest gym in the Generation 2 postgame, therefore we're going to challenge it right now. The subordinate trainers in here range from level 30 to 36, and they are actually on theme with poison Pokemon, unlike in Gen 1 when Fuchsia Gym had a bunch of psychic types in it. Baking Soda and Lone Star cover the trainers here pretty well. Then, against the new leader, Janine, she has a level 36 Crobat that Baking Soda ice punches, a 33 Ariados that Lone Star massively overkills, then a 39 Weezing, 39 Venomoth, and a 36 Weezing who all lose to Tamantha's Psychics, winning us our first Kanto League badge. Janine is the easiest leader by far, so it's weird that she's tucked away in Fuchsia City, but it makes sense in lore, seeing as how Koga joined the Elite Four and she's a new replacement. The developers placed a weirdly high emphasis on lore consistency between this and the wild Pokemon of Kanto coming in at low levels just like they would have in Gen 1. It was probably the wrong call since this confused people, but I can at least understand why some things are less difficult. After the gym, try heading south to discover construction blocks the sea route to Cinnabar. For how open the Kanto postgame could have been, they actually did a good job closing off certain routes to lightly railroad us where we need to go. The rest of Fuchsia City is empty and sad though, so I'm not even sure it's worth finishing that construction. The Safari Dome is shuttered, the zoo is torn and crumbling just because the warden is traveling. This man did an awful job managing, seeing as how not a single employee was trained and empowered to run the business in his absence. Slowpoke was probably a micromanager who never helped his employees grow their skills or take any initiative. The one thing Fuchsia did retain was forcing you to cut bushes to get around. We want to have a gloom before heading east from Fuchsia, so fly back up to Saffron City now and head north on Route 5. We still do need to be playing at nighttime in order to find and catch an Oddish in the grass here. With Tuna Baby in the party, she is actually gentle enough to tap an Oddish without it dying to make the catch easy. Then we actually do want to catch a Gloom in addition to that Oddish. We could technically catch just an Oddish that we later evolve into Gloom, but that hurts the sequencing slightly and more importantly steals XP from Tuna Baby, so we're happy to just blow the extra balls catching a Gloom directly while we're here. Also, this grandma in the old daycare hands us the cleanse tag because she senses evil trying to harm us. Uh-oh. When's the last time we checked Pirate's Cove? Up in Cerulean City, we actually don't have a single thing to do. I'll spill the beans. Brock is our clear second gym leader, but we cannot travel west through Mount Moon, meaning the only way to Pewter City is through Diglett Tunnel, which is blocked by Snorlax, meaning we need the Poke Flute, which comes from restoring power to the Lavender radio station, and therefore we've got to resolve the broken power plant issue before taking on our second gym. But this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say the postgame is elegant. By focusing on reaching Pewter City second, the postgame, which can otherwise feel open and aimless, is actually scoped down into a very intentional sequence of events with a better difficulty curve. Start by heading east on Route 9. This route was chock full of opponents in red, blue, yellow, and it still retains a healthy 6 trainers in Gen 2. Tuna Baby has hit level 24 by now and is trying to evolve every time she levels up, but I've been canceling out. Flamethrower comes at level 35 if we hold off evolving, and Crunch comes at 43. If we allow Tuna Baby to evolve before learning Crunch, I'm not confident she'll even get the chance to learn it before we're done. Reach the power plant on Route 10, then embrace your inner Karen and speak to the manager to learn that a vital machine part has been stolen. Go to leave and the door guard gets a phone call about a suspicious character in Cerulean City, and he asks us to go harass them for him. So, fly back to Cerulean, enter the gym to catch the shady character, a rocket grunt, leaving in a hurry. We can find the machine part he stole from the power plant ditched in the water, but it's annoying hunting for this when the game asks you to surf every time you miss. Now, we want to clear our way up to Cerulean Cape now. The rocket we chased out of the gym is on Nugget Bridge, challenging us with just a single Golbat for Knife to roll out. We break the news to him that Team Rocket is kaput, and he leaves to go find a new purpose in life. Then, since we're in the mood for collecting hidden shit out of the water, surf to the former entrance of Cerulean Cave and grab Mewtwo's Berserk gene from the water. Head east on Route 25 now toward Bill's grandpa's cabin, clearing out 6 trainers in a gauntlet reminiscent of Nugget Bridge from Generation 1. Tuna Baby is just getting to barely a level where she can contribute in super effective matchups, but this Oddish critting to faint her shows that we still have a little bit to go. By this point in the run, we no longer even have to be careful with tight matchups against normal trainers. There are no more long routes full of battles where we need to stretch our team's survivability, so slogging through an unfavorable matchup that leaves your Pokemon wounded is not super detrimental. We will be back at a Pokécenter in a minute or two anyway. Find Misty on a date up at the Cape where she bullies us a little bit, then returns to her gym for business later. It will be a while before we challenge her, but the important thing was clearing all those trainers on the way up here, since we have to return later with a team of useless chumps to show to Bill's grandpa, and we don't want to get caught in battles with them. For now, we are done in Cerulean City, so head back east to the power plant and hand the missing generator part to the manager of the plant. To thank us, he gives us the Zap Cannon TM. We are right here, so continue now through the rock tunnel. This is another area that, yes, I admit, got cheapened in Gold and Silver. It's smaller and more simply laid, and there are no trainers in here, just several pieces of loot, including our first copy of the Steel Wing TM. This move is pretty odd to save for so late in the game. It can help your flyer like Crobat against ice foes, except you really shouldn't have a flyer in against an ice opponent in the first place. You can also encounter Kangaskhan here, displaced from the closed Safari Zone. That's a pretty cool Pokemon to make available, but a shame how late it comes. On the far side of the tunnel are a mere 2 hiker trainers, one of whom, with a level 35 Machamp, is one of the few normal trainers worth being aware of in all of the postgame. Now we're in Lavender Town, which is a lot less gloomy than in Generation 1. The former Pokemon Tower is now a radio station. Head inside and receive a radio expansion card from one grateful employee whose job we saved when we turned the power back on. With this card, we can listen to Kanto radio stations. They have their own version of the Pokemon March/Lullaby channel and a Poke Flute channel that can wake the sleeping Snorlax, preventing us from challenging Brock. So this is ultimately why we had to visit Cerulean City and resolve that whole power plant situation. Let's close the loop and walk west on Route 8 towards Saffron City, battling a couple of easy trainers. Our Kanto route so far has been very clean. It feels like those challenges to draw the shape without lifting your pencil or retracing any edges, which, if you don't know, are trivial. Just start from a vertex with an odd number of connections if there is one, then end at the other vertex with an odd number of connections. This time in Saffron, visit the Mimic Girl because the power is back on. The rail station was built over her family's house, so she has a ticket to gift us, if we do her the favor of retrieving her lost Pokédoll first. Let's do something that's totally not that. Fly to Fuchsia City and grab that Gloom we caught a while ago from the PC. Have several Ultra Balls on hand as well. Now head east on routes 15, 14, and 13 between Fuchsia and Lavender Town. Several trainer battles here level up the team to around 41, and Tuna Baby is even strong enough by now to solo a whole team of Bellsprout evolutions. With these initial trainers done, the Route 15 portion, step in the grass and crack out your Juicy Couture Viva La Juicy. Have Gloom use Sweet Scent to trigger wild Pokemon encounters without having to walk, since it's going to be faster and we need to find a 1% Chansey encounter. An encounter that I literally got on my first try. Chansey likes to self-heal, but Tuna Baby lands a burn, which helps whittle her down, and I managed to catch her after some patience. After a couple more trainers on Route 14, find a woman in the grass who's hurting for what else but a Chansey. She'll trade her Aerodactyl, Aeroy, for the one we just caught. This is the only Pokemon in Gold and Silver that we can only get through trading. It learns Ancient Power in a few levels, and if we had saved our Earthquake TM until now, and if we were allowing Gen 1 Pokemon on the team, this would make a compelling replacement for both Canyonero and Lone Star. Alas. Also, Aeroid generously comes with a gold berry. Clean up the other trainers on routes 14 and 13. Tuna Baby hits 35 here to learn Flamethrower, which could be, for some, a good level to finally let her evolve. I'm still gonna wait for Crunch, but she did have fun torching this whole team of Pikachus with Flamethrower. This jackass sign tells us to check for a hidden item to the left, but the hidden calcium is very much to its right. Working up the fishing docks, meet the same fishing guru who, in Red, Blue, Yellow, gave us the Super Rod, and he offers it again now. We're only catching one more Pokemon on this run though, and it's certainly not aquatic. If I told you that it's Cheese for Red's Snorlax, would you be able to guess which Pokemon? Something becomes apparent during the combats on this stretch. Not planning for water coverage has really hurt me in Kanto. My team came very close to running Sunflora at several points during planning, with its cut and flash coverage, usage of the new Sunstone for content, and of course to cover water types. Even now, it would probably slot nicer on the team than a Houndoom. The awkward thing about Sunkern is you benefit by waiting until level 46 to learn Giga Drain before evolving it, which is pretty close to what we're doing with Tuna Baby anyway. But it's too late to waste the XP on another team change, so we'll struggle with water types for the remainder of the run. With these routes finished, heal up in Lavender Town, then immediately walk west on Route 11 toward Vermilion. And Snorlax. There are a couple of superficial trainer battles on the way, but nothing challenging. Before waking Snorlax, I used the TM we gained all the way back in Mahogany Town Rocket Dungeon to teach Thief to Tuna Baby. We can use Thief against Snorlax to steal its leftovers, both making this fight easier and scoring us a second copy of a strong held item. Unfortunately, Snorlax counters right away with a lethal body slam. I then send in Knife, who takes a few minutes to land enough consecutive rollouts to cut through their rests, but she stays healthy with her own leftovers and eventually gets there, knocking out Snorlax to open Diglett Tunnel. Head right on in. I left Repel off with Baking Soda in front, since I would welcome the easy Dugtrio XP if we encountered any. Then on Gary Larson's The Far Side is Route 2. There are a couple of bug catchers here, but Viridian Forest has been hollowed out. Instead of a dungeon, it's just laid out in the overworld. Surprisingly accurate to its original shape though, and full of loot. Before entering Pewter City, we have a very important catch to make. Hunt this grass for a 2.5% encounter rate female Pikachu and catch her. They show up at level 4, so there's no weakening it, just chuck Ultra Balls. I thought we'd need a male too, but there's a better Pichu dad for free in a second. Then, if you followed my recommendation and marathoned all this content so far on a Saturday night, you can rest now until tomorrow morning. Enter Pewter City. In the Poke Center, this man will trade his Rapidash for our Gloom. Runny, the Rapidash, which is the most adorable trade name ever, comes with a burnt berry, which is cute for lore reasons, but a stupid gift. This is our final trade for Gold Silver, so let's tack on the Kanto trades to our tier list now. Aroy is the single best trade in Gold Silver. He's strong overall, well positioned against Blaine and Blue, and the Chansey that you need comes right next to the trade. His points deducted are for Chansey being so rare, the trade coming as late as it does, and because you've surely spent your Earthquake TM by now. But relative to the overall weak trades of this gen, Aroy is peak. Runny, not so much. Its special attack is low for a fire type, and its move pool is weak, so it comes crazy late considering. Not to mention, Ponytas were easily caught for a while now. The little benefit that I can grant is that Ponyta evolves pretty late, so early Rapidash is interesting, but this is just not strong or well positioned. Pewter's museum is closed down, but this random old man on the east side of town gives us the Silver Wing to unlock our level 70 Lugia encounter for later. Then we finally reached Brock's gym, the second in ascending difficulty, so head inside. His single subordinate trainer is the same guy from Generation 1 with his Sandslash now evolved. Then against Brock, Baking Soda could handle every opponent Pokemon, but I attempt to spread out the jobs a little. Baking Soda surfs his initial Graveler, but then he sends in a problematic Giga-draining Kabutops. I use Tamantha to neutrally Psychic this down over 2 turns. Annoyingly, Brock has another water type that we struggle against, Omastar, who crits down Tamantha before she can finish him. With no one left on the team who makes sense against a water opponent, I send in Lone Star to Dragon Breathe. That's not lethal, but I do land a Paralyze, but he does attack through it, but he only used Spike Cannon instead of Surf, so winning? His Onix only has normal type moves plus Rock Slide, so I send out Canyonero to win with Earthquakes through a Hyper Potion. All that remains is his Rhyhorn, so it's back to Baking Soda who surfs to win our second Kanto League badge. Lieutenant Surge is third in ascending order, so fly straight down to Vermilion. But before the gym, visit the Pokemon Fan Club again. The man on the left is holding a Poké Doll that turns out to be the one lost by the Mimic Girl. Speak to him and he returns it without hard feelings. Now let's massively overextend Canyonero against the electric types in Surge's gym. 10 Earthquakes handle 10 Pokemon from the subordinate trainers, then I pop an Ether on Earthquake and challenge Lieutenant Surge himself. Our team is honestly weak here. Without a true ground type to resist, Surge's attacks are painful. Canyonero Earthquakes his initial Raichu after suffering a painful Thunder hit. His Electrodes both know Explosion, which I counter with my own Exploder. They seem to prefer to blow up at low HP, so I spend several turns with Knife landing pin missiles through its double teams to get it low. Then I correctly read the Explosion turn and neutralize that on the critical turn with Protect. He sends in Magneton next, who has the lock-in Zap Cannon combo. I simply have to use Canyonero's 4x Earthquake here. Surge knows he doesn't have time for the combo and goes straight for Zap Cannon, which thankfully misses, and Canyonero is able to attack to win. Against his second Electrode, Lone Star is actually trailing in level, so I get cheeky and send her in. A Dragon Breath paralyzes on my first hit, allowing me to clean up with Sacred Fire and win without fear of explosion. Last is his level 45 Electabuzz, who is a proper challenge. He lands consecutive Thunders to KO Lone Star as I manage a Sacred Fire burn. Surge then Hyper Potions as Tamantha lands a huge but non-lethal return. Then she's able to tank a Thunder and return with Return for lethal and our third Kanto League badge. This was a real fight. It's wild how the placement suggests it as your first gym. Now, I told you to play this part on Sunday so we could take an SS Aqua ride back to Johto from Vermilion. There's no missing granddaughter plot this time, just a fresh batch of trainer battles that is different from before. Just grab the experience and cash from these battles and rest in your cabin to trigger arrival in Olivine City. Once in Johto, fly to Goldenrod City and walk down to the daycare. We're gonna drop off our female Pikachu and Runny the Rapidash in order to breed a Pichu. Since Runny came from a different trainer, the odds of getting an egg are better. Hop on your bike and do a few laps of Goldenrod until an egg pops out. Mine only needed a couple hundred steps. Once you get an egg, take it with you, extract the parents from daycare, and pass time until Monday, specifically 9 or 10 a.m.-ish. Kick off the day with a boat ride back to Vermilion, experiencing the third different batch of trainers you can find on the SS Aqua. Level-wise, this is the most difficult batch, but not by a meaningful amount. It was against a cool trainer on this ride that Tuna Baby finally hit level 43 to learn Crunch, and so I allowed her to evolve after the battle. At long last, we have the Forbidden Dark type on our team in its full glory. Misty is our next target in the gym challenge, but we want to walk the long way there, both for content and to get our steps in on this egg. Fly to Pewter City and walk east along Route 3. There's a handful of trainers here where there used to be a million. Heal if you need to after the 4th trainer, then enter Mount Moon for a surprise arrival fight. It's been a long while since we've encountered Algo. He leads with his Sneasel, so send out Knife to pin missile it down. I'm happy to see that our contrived breeding target is still paying off. Algo's entire team is the same as last time, save that his Haunter has evolved into Gengar. Tamantha psychics his Golbat, and Lone Star fires his Magneton. It's back to Tamantha to psychic his Gengar in 1 turn, then she takes 2 turns to Shadow Ball his Alakazam while he blasts us with a Psychic that we resist. For his Meganium, it's back to Lone Star for Sacred Fire. I like that now the party has reached the 40s, I'm able to actually utilize Lone Star for real. That's one thing Generation 1 didn't do well. By the time you acquired any legendaries, there was hardly a need for them. Gold and Silver's postgame actually allows you to use your box art legendary in battle. Mount Moon, like Rock Tunnel and Viridian Forest, is not a real dungeon this time. Like Gwyn, it's become hollowed and is now this cute area with unique music called Mount Moon Square with a shop that's only open from 10 AM to 6 PM daily. There's nothing new for sale here, except they sell fresh water in the store, so we can actually buy it in bulk instead of having to blast them out of the vending machine and risk a maximum overdrive situation. Then, pause your game in here. Go out to dinner, passing time until 8 PM. On Mondays only, after 8 PM, the Clefairies dance around a meteorite in this enclosure. Smash open the rock after their performance, and you can collect a Moonstone. This is repeatable weekly, but again, it's weird how available Moonstones are compared to the others in Gold and Silver. Head out the east exit of Mount Moon to Route 4 now, where a couple of trainers await. This Birdkeeper has a level 12 Pidgey accompanying his level 34 Pidgeot. This feels like a typo. Nowhere else in the game has there been a troll low-level Pokemon like this, unless you count the fishermen that have teams of Magikarps. There's a hidden Ultra Ball on this ledge where a hidden Great Ball was in Generation 1. It's as though some invisible bird keeps a nest up here, collecting Smooth and Silky. 2 Dark Souls references in a row? Yep, somebody try and stop me. We've popped out of Mount Moon, back to Cerulean City, and we're finally ready to take on Misty. I'm excited to test out Tuna Baby in a real battle, so I actually stick her in against most of these subordinate trainers despite having a water weakness. She crunches most of them down without issue. Heck, even against Misty, Tuna Baby is able to crunch her Golduck before I have to get serious. Again, I'm bitten by not planning for water coverage that would have been all solved by running a Lantern instead of a Mantine, in which case Tuna Baby would have just replaced Baking Soda. So I slog through Misty's water team with no real tech, except that Baking Soda's Iron Tail handles her water/ice Lapras neatly. Defeating Misty earns our 4th Kanto badge. Alright, we've had this egg now for a bit, and its due date is coming up. Hop on that bike and do laps until a little Pichu pops out. My runs often have 1 or 2 highly important specific anchor points that shape the rest of the run. This Pichu was my anchor for the gold postgame. It was perfectly convenient that Brock is the 2nd gym, Pikachu is catchable near him, Runny as a father is available to trade right there in Pewter City, Lieutenant Surge as the following gym places us right in Vermilion City, then the ferry takes us back and forth on Sunday and Monday to get the egg in perfect time to do Mount Moon's Monday exclusive Clefairy event, reach Misty as our 4th Kanto gym leader, then hatch Pichu and bring all 5 Pokemon that Bill's grandpa wants to see in one single swoop. This is exactly what I mean by the postgame being elegant if you play it with some intentionality. Show Bill's grandpa a Lickitung for an Everstone, Oddish for a Leaf Stone, Staryu for a Water Stone, Growlithe or Vulpix for a Fire Stone, and finally our Neonate Pichu for a Thunderstone. The payoff for these quests happens so fast, but these Grandpa Stones were like 40% of the planning effort for this video, so please notice me. With the railroad reopened and Bill's grandpa satisfied, we've handled most of the clever aspect of the postgame, and it's now mostly a matter of cleaning up gym battles. So refresh the party and fly over to Celadon City. We have handled everything else that we need to out of the city, so head straight in to fight Erica. With fire, flying, bug, and psychic moves on the party, this team is massively overprepared for Erica. I hand Lone Star many of these subordinate trainers in here, letting Canyonero rock the flying ones. Against Erica, I allow Tuna Baby to roast her starting Tangela. Lone Star flies down her Blossom, though I timed it wrong and caught the business end of a Solar Beam cycle. Canyonero rocks her Jumpluff, then it's back to Lone Star to Sacred Fire her Victory Bell and secure a very easy 5th Kanto badge. Our 6th target will be Blaine, and we can only reach him via Pallet Town, so fly back to Pewter and walk south, stopping in Viridian City. The meaningful content here is this trainer house, which each day lets you challenge an NPC-controlled echo of the last person you've mystery gifted with. In absence of any player interaction, the opponent here is Cal, who has a level 50 variant of each of these starter Pokemon, albeit with crappy mid-game movesets. Lone Star eats his Meganium, who only knows Body Slam as far as attacks. Canyonero beats his Typhlosion in 2 Earthquakes, and we have nothing strong for his Feraligatr. I let Tuna Baby crunch it since he doesn't know any water moves at all. I checked the mart here, and finally it makes sense in the Gen 2 postgame why they sell burn heals and paralyze heals here, given Typhlosion and Meganium. These offerings were not so sensible in Gen 1. There are 2 trainer battles on Route 1, a sad little gesture from the devs so that it's not completely empty down here. Pallet Town has nothing for us, except that Professor Oak gives us the quest to finish collecting the Kanto badges, which we were going to do anyway. Toss on a repel and get surfing towards Cinnabar Island. Yet again, we're punished for not having water coverage, but the trainer levels here are low and Knife defeats them neutrally without issue. Cinnabar Island has no more buildings thanks to a volcanic eruption, apparently, save this Poke Center that either avoided the blast or was reconstructed on an otherwise empty island. Either occurrence is a mystery. Blue is here, who is canonically our rival from the Gen 1 games. He's being a bummer, staring at the rock and ruminating on the fleeting nature of man, but he scurries off to Viridian City, unlocking his gym leader battle when we're ready. Surf east to the Seafoam Island, which has a really weird sign that says, "What does this sign say?" That, or this is just the single place in the game where our reading of a sign is narrated. Again, either occurrence is a mystery. It feels like the writers were drunk for this corner of the game. Gym leader Blaine has made Seafoam his sea home, running his gym out of this little cave. We're over-prepared on fire coverage, so his battle is rather easy despite his high levels. Baking Soda starts with a 4x surf against his Mag Cargo. Then I switch to Canyonero when he sends out Magmar, since his Magmar knows a sneaky Thunder Punch move that will catch your water types. And I keep in Canyonero against his level 50 Rapidash that I amazingly beat in a single super effective Rock Slide. The Champion Making Guide teleports in after our victory, which is kinda funny. He had trouble finding us here. I like that the game respects us to understand type advantages by now and or remember Blaine from Generation 1. With Blaine defeated, we can surf up to Fuchsia City now via Route 19, slogging through a final couple of water trainers. Once we make landfall, find that the construction has been completed and we're allowed to stroll right into Fuchsia. Again, the level design here shows off some elegance. The one-way valves of the Fuchsia construction, Diglett Tunnel access to Pewter, and Mount Moon to Cerulean help scope down the large world to form a cozier route. It's time to visit Saffron City for a psychic reckoning, but first visit the Mimic Girl to return her Pokédoll. She hands us the Magnet Train Pass as thanks, allowing us to revisit Johto at will. We don't really need the train thanks to proper planning, but it's gonna help anyone who forgot to catch a Lickitung, for example. Unleash the fury of Tamantha and Knife against these subordinate trainers in Sabrina's gym. These 2 Pokemon plus Tuna Baby do have a lot of redundant coverage that makes Psychic types very easy to handle, but after the challenge that Psychics posed in Generation 1, it feels pretty nice to steamroll them here. Against Sabrina, I lead with Knife to Pin Missile her Espeon, which gets a tiny bit sketchy thanks to sand attacks. Next is Alakazam, who smartly used Reflect to raise physical defense, but Tamantha resists his attacks and leftovers keep her healthy over the many turns it takes to return him down through recovers and a Hyper Potion. Sabrina sends a Mr. Mime next that Tuna Baby tragically gets an inch away from one-shotting, but as her final Pokemon, it's a bit disappointing to be over so soon. I wish they gave all the gym leaders full teams, even if it meant shaving off a level or 2 for difficulty's sake. Defeating Sabrina gives our 7th Kanto League badge. Similar to how the end of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow is just to challenge Blaine, Giovanni, and then the Elite Four, the end of Kanto in Gold and Silver really is just back-to-back battles as well. We hit 3 running gym battles, and we're set to take on Blue as our 4th back in Viridian City. Fight Cal again if you've let it become a new day, then enter the gym, which has received a significant redecoration from Gen 1. Gone are the spinny pads and other trainers, it's just some green Lego bricks and the gym leader. Blue's team matches his endgame team from Red Blue, not Yellow, but with his starter Pokemon replaced with Gyarados, Executor, or Arcanine, how it would be if you had started with the starter of whichever type. He initiates with Pidgeot, against which my only tech is Ice Punches from Baking Soda, doing less than half a bar apiece. This fool Mirror moves me once, even though that's ineffective, and I get there in a few turns. Second is Executor, who charges a Solar Beam while Knife Pin Missiles, so I Protect next turn to stymie the Solar Beam and repeat the whole dance several more times between putting the Miss in Pin Missile and Blue using a Full Restore to ultimately win rather cleanly. Arcanine is third, and I send Canyonero to punish. Blue does not care for this matchup, so he roars, landing him my Baking Soda. Bad move, bucko. It's neat to see him use Extreme Speed, but 1 surf takes me home. His Alakazam is next. We've been seeing this guy an awful lot lately between Algo, Sabrina, and Blue. Tuna Baby embarrasses it with Crunch. He recovers my first one, but I landed the SP Def down added effect, which makes it so my second Crunch is just plain lethal. Rhydon is the 3rd Pokemon this fight that I hand to Baking Soda, who with 15 hit points remaining manages to outspeed and win with a 4x Surf. Blue's final Pokemon is Gyarados, which I have to fight with some creativity and hyper baiting. I've used this maneuver a few times over my last videos. We trick the opponent into using Hyper Beam by sending out someone who resists its other moves, in this case Hydro Pump, then switching to someone who can tank the Hyper Beam and punish while it recharges. I got off rhythm when I sent out Tamantha, who lands a crunchy return crit before getting KO'd by Hydro Pump, but she did get him to blow his full restore before he can surprise me with it at a bad time. Then it's back to hyper baiting with Baking Soda into Canyonero for a final Rock Slide to win our 8th and final Kanto League badge. So, the new gyms are all handled. There are still 3 more pieces of content to tackle before we're done with the postgame. The first piece will be obvious, the final battle with Red. Fly to Pallet Town and turn in the Kanto badge quest to Professor Oak, who rewards us with access to Mount Silver off of Route 28 back in Johto. Head there at nighttime for some night-only Pokemon if you care to. First, though, in a house on Route 28, find the reclusive Fly HM girl from Route 16 in Gen 1. This time, she gifts us a TM, a second copy of Steel Wing. This gift has got to be a mistake. No other TMs repeat like this, and it's so limited in terms of who can learn it and what it's good for, it's not even a sensible repeat. Nobody is going to need 2 copies of Steel Wing the way they might want Dig or Giga Drain. Sneasels are out here on Route 28 at night, a 10% encounter. We don't want one, it's just another dark type confined to the extreme end of the game for me to complain about. But at least the wild Pokemon levels here are close to the parties if you feel like shaking up the team. Which we do! At nighttime only, inside Mount Silver, we can run into Miss Drevis, the franchise's first pure Ghost-type Pokemon. While it's not conventionally strong, and less so because we wasted Shadow Ball on Tamantha, it does enable some bullshit that can account for more than one opponent during the coming extremely difficult Red fight, so that's a bargain we want. Welcome Cranch to the team. I teach her the Curse TM we recently got in Celadon City. Now, let's grind a few levels while I acknowledge the rough level curve of the postgame. In just a few hours of gameplay, we've seen the Gym Leader's Pokemon range from level 33 Janine to level 58 Blue. And the toughest challenge in the game, Red, is here in Mount Silver with levels ranging from 73 to 81. So for once, I am foregoing the repels and fighting most of the Pokemon that I encounter in this area. Aside from Red's Blastoise, the team is set up relatively well, so I am okay going in at a significant level disadvantage, but I still find it appealing and appropriate to quickly grind the team out to a cool level 50 against wild Pokemon here before we challenge Red. The only noteworthy development besides stat increases is that Cranch picks up Perish Song at 46, making her moveset Confuse Ray, Curse, Perish Song, and Pain Split, 4 indirect moves that can each help us screw with tough opponents. Once you've looted the place and grinded to a feasible level, it's a short path to Red, whom they gave no dialogue lines so as to not impose a voice on your character from Generation 1. I had no expectations of winning at level 50 against his average level of 77, a difference of 27, more than 50% greater than mine. But if the team has felt weak against select gyms in the postgame, that was all because that I had selected this team from the start to be good at both Johto content and this specific fight, so we may have a chance if our good planning is enough. He leads with his level 81 Pikachu, and I with Canyonero. Through a charm that sharply lowers my attack, Earthquake still hits for more than half of Pikachu's health bar and forces the full restore next turn as we run it back. Pikachu thunders and we survive at 13 hit points and paralyzed, but thankfully Earthquake gets through and we're up 1-0, if you can count Canyonero as alive. Next, Red sends in Espeon. Tuna Baby earns her place on the team with this encounter. One crunch does almost half HP to the opponent, but importantly gets the special defense down added effect, making my second crunch lethal, while Espeon only manages to reflect and swift. 2-0. Red's third Pokemon is the one I don't have any plan for, Blastoise. I pause and think, then try out Cranch. The Gambit is Perish Song, which sets both Pokemon to faint in 3 turns, and does not break the opponent's timer if I switch out. So I tank 1 Surf, slap a 3-turn clock on Blastoise, then switch to Knife, hoping to protect my way through a few turns while Perish Song ticks. Somehow, without a crit, Blastoise surfs down Knife in 1 attack, so I send out Canyonero, who's mostly dead anyway, and Blastoise has 2 turns remaining. He whirlpools the sacrificial Canyonero, meaning I actually could have full restored and wasted one of his turns, but instead Canyonero faints and I send out Baking Soda at Perish count 1. I spend the turn not reviving anyone, but simply fresh watering Tuna Baby to full to give her a fighting chance in case I need to use her against Charizard, but Red outsmarts the Perish Song counter by swapping Blastoise for Snorlax. So sadly my Perish tech didn't pay off and cost me 2 Pokemon. The count is 2-2 now. But Cranch can turn the tide against Snorlax, so I swap back to her. As a ghost, Snorlax is unable to damage Cranch at all. I take one turn to Pain Split, full healing myself off of Snorlax's large health pool. That lets me curse the next turn, putting Snorlax on a short fuse. Since I lost Knife for no reason but poor planning, I do spend a turn safely reviving her. Next turn, Pain Split plus Leftovers heal Cranch back to full from the curse, and with no other helpful moves, I Confuse Ray Snorlax, who does tap himself to death instead of getting the chance to rest again. With Knife back in the fight as well, we're now up to 3-1. I'm pleased to see Venusaur next, which I assigned to Lone Star. I made an error here using Sacred Fire instead of Fly, since Venusaur outspeeds me and began charging a Solar Beam that I could have dodged. But at 1/4 effectiveness, it's not a big deal to eat the Solar Beam and Sacred Fire a second time to win. Except, I did less damage this time and Venusaur lived to use Synthesis. Whatever, I do it a third time to actually win. Then, it's back to Blastoise. I know he's savvy to Perish Sung, so this time Cranch uses Curse to at least get his hit points decreasing in an incremental way, sacrificing herself in the process. 4-2. Knife comes in now to Protect, wasting turns for Curse to do its job. But Protect can fail if used back to back, so I Giga Drain instead on turn 2. Oh yeah, we got Giga Drain from Erica. And this time Surf magically isn't lethal, allowing Knife to drain back some hit points, but more importantly, buying me a third turn of life to Protect again, all the while Curse is doing its job. Thanks to that Giga Drain, one more Curse tick is lethal, so I risk it all on a consecutive Protect, which sadly fails while Knife gets surfed down, 4-3. But all I needed was Baking Soda to tank one more Surf and let Curse tick down my ultimate foe, bringing the score to 5-3 as I defeat Blastoise. Miss Drevis has some serious utility in this fight, able to fully handle Snorlax, plus mess up one more Pokemon with Curse. It's almost like she was carefully placed here by the developers just to help you beat Red. Red's final Pokemon is iconically Charizard, and our remaining crew is set pretty well against him, but all I need is Baking Soda to land 2 Surfs and defeat Red 6-3, done at an amazingly low level with no drawn-out Elite Four grinding, just 30 minutes spent in Mount Silver grabbing everybody 2 or 3 levels on wild encounters first. And after the credits roll a second time, we're not done. I said 3 more bits of content, that was just the first. After beating Red, we're still in Johto, which is convenient for taking on the Whirl Islands. I'm forced to shuffle Saltine back on the team for Waterfall and Whirlpool. There is a pushable boulder coming too, but we don't need to push it, so Tamantha can stay out. We don't really need strength. Fly to Cyanwood City and surf northeast to the 4 Whirl Islands. The southwest and southeast islands are easily interconnected and only contain loot, so visit them first if you're trying to make a full clear of the area. Do the northwest island next, also just for loot. It's the northeast island you'll want to visit last, where you can surf to encounter a level 70 Lugia on the bottom floor. Her nice Aeroblast move has been replaced with the less reliable and not same type Hydro Pump, but I had forgotten this and assumed that Tuna Baby was safe from water. She was not. 2 crunches got Lugia below half, then I had to send in Baking Soda to chip away with super effective, but very weak, Ice Punches. The cool thing is, Baking Soda lands a freeze, and I got a free chance to bully Lugia the rest of the way down, since recover from her can complicate the battle. I pause for a moment after I get her HP down to a sliver of red, and she's also frozen. The game is handing me the catch on a silver platter, no pun intended, so I decide that if fate means it to be, I'll give it 1 Ultra Ball toss. Sadly, Lugia breaks out after a single shake, so I accept the outcome and commit Birder Most Foul. Now for the final piece of post-game content, which I admit would have been more neatly handled on the way to Mount Silver. The final rival fight actually occurs on the steps up to the Elite Four, only on Monday and Wednesday, and only after you've beaten the Elite Four once already. But hey, waiting till now gave me a reason to take the Magnet Train. Return to Kanto once more and visit Indigo Plateau to wave goodbye to Algo. His Sneasel is confined to attacking with ineffective Fury Cutters against Cranch, so she gives him the Curse Confusion combo and waits a couple of turns for the victory to come to her. Crobat is next, the only meaningful team change. Algo has finally learned the meaning of friendship at the tail end of the game, and I'm honestly happy for him. Canionero does take out the bat with a single Rock Slide, though. Meganium is third, and I'm finally smart by now, so I send out Lone Star over Tuna Baby. That's because I know Meganium likes using Light Screen to block special attacks, but Lone Star can pivot into a physical Fly and still hit fully effective. Magneton comes fourth. I think it's safe to say that Canionero has been the single Pokemon I rely on the most. She's been adequate for the whole run, but she really picks up in utility for the Elite Four and beyond. You would not be crazy to run 2 different rock-ground fighting Pokemon, which often do have a lot of overlap in coverage, but would both fully go appreciated in the Gen 2 late and post-game. Because Gengar is 5th, and again, that's Canyonero's job to Earthquake. His final Pokemon, and the last one we'll face in this run, is Alakazam, whom Tuna Baby summarily crunches twice through a light screen to win and put the Pokemon Gold postgame to rest. Beating the game with a dark type against an Alakazam is poetic, no? Is there jank? Yes. I'm going to summarize the flaws of the Pokemon Gold and Silver postgame, and then argue for the bigger picture of the experience actually being cohesive and fun. There's some weird mistakes, like a level 12 Pidgey opponent and 2 Steel Wing TMs, neither of which needed to be given so late. Those are straight up mistakes. The world feels a little empty. None of the old dungeons are present, and trainer battles have been slashed by about 50 to 60%. Don't check my math, that's just a guess. To that I say, what did you expect? To literally re-implement the entire previous generation games inside this one? I believe players let their expectations get high when they discovered the entire Kanto region is available in the postgame, then allowed their sense of wonder and, frankly, gratitude to fade when certain expectations weren't met. I have never been negative on the Kanto experience in Gen 2, even as a kid. To me, it felt too good to be true. I said, wow, you can actually enter the buildings in Vermilion City? Wait, you can fight Lieutenant Surge? You can travel up to Saffron City? Is all of Kanto here? What else did they include? So if you were to put it in just a couple of words, I would say be grateful, but my angle is much more than that. Full dungeons would have placed a huge burden on the writing and design teams to justify their existence. With all the HMs in hand, dungeons just aren't able to pose the navigational obstacle that they served in Generation 1. Their only purpose would have been to give the player new places to grind a couple of levels, which from a management perspective is an awful use of time. In fact, to the end of giving us places to grind, Game Freak did give us a couple of repeatable ways to grind levels in order to power up for Red. Early on, you can ride the SS Aqua back and forth for trainer battles. The trainer house in Viridian City is worth a little, and the Elite Four of course still exists and is generally the best XP per unit time. Then there are the rematches of the final rival encounter on Mondays and Wednesdays. Is this enough? No. Could they have given more options? Of course. Later generations do figure this out with overt, grindy battle challenges, but I think the few offerings at least convey the intent. They wanted us to have ways to grind, but they still chose to keep the options feeling realistic in the game world instead of implementing entire dungeons just for us to grind levels. So what do I find so elegant about the Pokemon Gold and Silver postgame? I touched on this before, but given the entire huge map of Kanto, the fact that they managed to serve us a somewhat linear Kanto League gym battle challenge alongside a mini-adventure with the power plant and the magnet train is indeed admirable. If you land in Vermilion City, fight Surge, then walk to Saffron and keep on trucking through Sabrina, you're going to doubt the designers when you reach Brock and Janine, who are much easier fights. But if you use outside knowledge to learn how to fight the gym leaders in ascending order, they really do form a sensible route through Kanto that lines up well with the power plant and the Bill's Grandpa Elemental Stone quests. I cannot explain why Janine is the lowest level, in game design terms anyway. I know in writing terms it's because she's the newest leader, but by experiencing the postgame in a specific order, which isn't even that strange, the Kanto half of your Generation 2 adventure is pretty clean, sensible, and yes, I even do find it elegant. With just a small writing change, like having Lieutenant Surge be the one whose daughter takes over his gym instead of Koga, or just some telegraphing on how we should go to Fuchsia first, we really could have solved all of these problems and made the experience pretty nice. Thanks very much to my patrons for your support. I appreciate each of you very much for helping keep my channel sustainable. If you would like to support the channel, my links are below. I post behind-the-scenes updates and occasional videos about my processes. And thanks so much to you, the viewer, for watching this video through. I felt bad splitting up Gold version into 2 videos, but it just didn't make sense as one given the length. My channel's still small enough that making a 2-hour video could randomly flop and really hurt my numbers, so thanks for letting me hedge my bets and segment off the postgame into this bad boy. Do please subscribe if you would like to catch future videos. We have some more Pokemon planned, as well as some more non-Pokemon, but it's all cozy and smoothly voiced. That's it for now, y'all. Peace out, Girl Scout.